Yeah.
I'm just seeing it.
Like how many more times do we have to?
Just recently.
Yeah, she's gonna like. That's like
So now
10
my
minutes
left
of
eye does not.
That's good.
Okay.
Which one?
Well, everybody says they don't like them. That was,
Which one? There's two.
one was a.
I would imagine.
I haven't heard from
Did
him,
the
no.
assassination from the,
But
it
wouldn't surprise me if he,
Because he's got
all the
like, that's the
All
second,
the ice patches.
that's the second one. I love the beginning of that one. When he beats you guys up and then he's the movie going.
I
and he
stole
goes,
your money.
"It's for you." And they're like, "I think it's-
Oh, that's okay.
Well, I'll get it back.
I'm like that.
I hate to say this.
I hope for that. Out of his mission.
Yeah. She's, well, it's
I
funny.
like watching.
But she's also a huge marketer. Okay, I like the people in that, and when that one sounds good, she wrote them off my page. But yeah, I can't.
Hello.
Thank
you. The international man of mystery.
Everyone's been hanging around for the plane woman.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Who's up? Who's up?
Okay. Good evening. Our auditor, Mrs. Linda Hamberg from Urban, will give a presentation for the financial statement ending June 30, 2021. Thank you.
Everyone received a full copy of the report. In addition, I handed out a summary copy of the auditor's results. I'm going to go through the summary copy.
Section, it turned all the way up on there?
They just have to be posted.
Okay.
So basically what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about what we audit. I'm going to review the auditor's reports. I'm going to hit on the financial statement highlights. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the uniform guidance audit and the results of that audit. And then we also issue communication letters. There's a management letter. There's a communication letter that goes through any audit adjustments or any issues with the report and the audit process that we do. And I have a summary of those in this outline as well. Okay, so basically, when we come out and do an audit, I always think of our audit as a cake with 3 layers. Most audits are just financial statement audits, but because of the Department of Education and all the state and federal monies you receive, we also have to do an audit under government auditing standards. Then, because you generally exceed $750,000 of federal funds, we also have to do an audit of the federal financial assistance. So there's actually 3 audit opinions in this report. You'll see the results of all those a little bit later, but basically our opinion on the financial statements themselves is an unmodified opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that we can issue. Basically, that means we were able to satisfy ourselves as to the financial information in the report. We also issue an opinion on compliance, and that was also unmodified. And you'll see that again in the results. We have a snapshot of that, and that involves looking at the government auditing standards process, internal controls and compliance, and then again, looking at the federal funds. Looking at the financial statements, I'm actually on page 5 of the summary. And this is the general fund budget to actual results. And just like every other school we've audited this year, total revenues have come in significantly higher than what was originally budgeted. There's 2 main reasons for that. First, the State Department of Education, when they gave out just some suggestions for putting the budget together with COVID, they said basically budget conservatively for revenue. And every school did that. And basically what we saw was things such as real estate taxes, earned income taxes, transfer taxes, all came in very similar to where they had been in previous years. There really was little to no decrease. The second reason was for all the funds that were received from the federal government that were not part of your original budget, ESSERS 1, ESSERS 2, the Coronavirus Education Fund. Then there was also money passed through the county, as well as money through PCCD at the state level. These were all items that you had no idea you were receiving when you did the budget. On the same hand, when you look at expenditures, our total expenditures, we had budgeted for $34,172,000. Our actual were $35,460,000. We actually exceeded our expenditures by $1,288,000. Part of that is understandable because when you get federal dollars in, you have to spend those federal dollars. And again, those dollars were not part of your budget. So we would expect to see an excess expenditures over budget. When you look down at the bottom of this page, we had budgeted as a district a $394,000 use of fund balance. We actually generated excess fund balance of $398,000, bringing our total fund balance at the end of the year to $4,599,000. I'm going to look a little bit deeper into the revenue on page 6. Our revenues are actually 6.2% over budget, and you can see where we had excesses. The same items I talked about, the current real estate taxes, earned income taxes, real estate transfer taxes, and delinquent real estate taxes, as well as rental income from the broadband lease payment. The only area you had a shortfall was investment earnings. And again, with the bank rates and interest rates dropping throughout the year, that we saw again through all the schools we audited. And then you can see the federal revenue excess. We had ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and the coronavirus relief funds passed through. Just a little bit more about expenditures on page 7. Our total instruction services were $445,000 over budget. That's basically from 2 areas. Our regular programs were $893,000 over budget, and that was largely due to regular programs related to the IU online classes that were paid for, as well as charter school tuition. There were savings in the special programs, and that was basically because there were fewer out-of-district placements that you had to pay for. A couple other large swings in the support services. Instructional staff includes purchasing technology equipment, so that was over budget by $142,000. The other large over budget area was the operation and maintenance of plant. And again, this was money spent for one of the federal programs, and it related to filtration systems, cleaning supplies, etc. One other area I do want to point out is student transportation. You had a savings of $252,000. Again, that was due to the fact that you had more virtual learning versus actually in-person learning, and transportation services were down. Page 8 just shows you a snapshot of the general fund balance at the end of the year and the components of it. So your committed fund balance of $1,048,000 is for the continuing retirement rate increases that we see each year. The assigned fund balance was what you budgeted for the 21-22 year. It's the use of the fund balance. And then the unassigned balance, the 2,503,000 is basically less than 8%. It's 7.1% of budgeted expenses. Couple comments on some of the other funds. Your capital projects fund is on page 9. Limited activity out of the fund this year. Basically, we did have the transfer of the broadband money into this fund, and we did have some expenses, but this was largely for the secure entrance design fees for all buildings, as well as the high school pipe installation. So at the end of the year, we do have a balance in this fund of $2,757,000. And that's both unspent bond funds and money that's transferred in the general fund to be used for future capital improvements. Food service fund is on page 10. The food service fund had a surplus for the year ended June 30th, 2021. The change in position was $105,431. And then if we adjust it for the pension and OPEB amounts, we come down with adjusted change in that position of a loss of $22,983. If you look above under total operating expenses, last year we had $526,000 of expenses. This year we have $440,000. That was basically all due to an adjustment in the pension and the OPEB expenses, which we have to look at and value, take the actuarial valuation each year. Other post-employment benefits. Basically, that is basically the health insurance, subscriptions for drugs, those types of things, all running through health insurance.
What was the cash? Were we in the positive? Were we cash in before
The cash, if you go to page 11, the cash at the end of the year, we do have a balance of close to $100,000 of cash. And you can see, just continuing down the page, we do end up with a net position of a negative $508,000, very similar to every other school in the state. And that is largely due to two things. If you look under non-current liabilities, you'll see the net pension liability of $262,000. In addition, you have the net other post-employment benefit liability, $32,000. So,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
So as our staff continues to move over to a third-party contractor, those numbers will continue to come down.
They should, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it depends on other factors like what kind of return the plan gets, but basically the more people that are off your plan, the less liability you have.
So that would be true also in our instructional staff, our paras, vehicle administrative, everybody.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
How many do we have left?
Pardon?
How many do we have left that are on?
Cafeteria, we have 3.
And our,
Paras, I think they're, because of the full timers, I think we're probably 12 or 13 off the top of my head. A lot of them have moved over because they realize the benefit of unemployment and what that brings to them, and then they make more money than on SOS than they do with us because we don't have to pay retirement and FICA and workers' comp and all the other benefits. So they're looking for the money and I get your real numbers, but off the top of my head, that's kind of where I'm at.
someday.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things we do is we look at your financial position and then we pull out the effects of OPEB as well as the retirement liabilities. And when we do that, your district would have a positive net position of $135,000, which is the recommended 3 months of reserves that the state says you should have in your cafeteria fund. One other item, if you do pick up the large fat report that we issued, we had to implement a new standard this year that had to do with fiduciary activities. So in essence, it really did not a lot to the Oley Valley School District. We just reclassed one fund. And if you look on page 12, we do show you the results of that study and how we treated the funds. And this is really your scholarships and student activities. These are still monies that are for third parties. Student activities goes to help support the students and their activities, and the scholarships would be money that was held until awarded to a student for a scholarship. A couple other things in this report, page 14. Federal grants. This summarizes all the funds that we spent and recognized this year. Just to give you an idea, last year and previous years, we just exceeded 750,000 many years. Last year, we had $894,000 of federal revenues and expenses. This year, with the coronavirus funds, we have $2,903,000. So basically $2 million more than what we normally see and spend.
I have a question with regard to the federal funds. Do they come with like strings attached?
The Title I has to be for reading support. That's how we pay our Title I teachers at the elementary. The COVID grants all have to be COVID. Title II and IV is social emotional learning and class size reduction. We don't use Title III because we don't get enough money to cover what it will cost us to manage it. Special education IDA, that goes against salary and benefits. Medicaid, that's against our, helps to pay for our OT and PT services for our most needy students. And then the child nutrition cluster, there's kind of federal money that helps offset what I think the cafeteria. Expenditures that were increased due to COVID and supply and demand and cost of food and things like that.
You said Title II and IV. I don't see them.
That would be the 56,000.
We have to list them by the names that the federal government wants to see. Title II and Title IV were the old.
Yes,
Old names.
we still use the regular, the old numbers. I'm too old to change anymore. But that's the supportive effective education title, what was known as Title II and the federal.
Yeah, but all these dollars do, when you say, do they come with strings attached? There's all requirements as to how they must be spent. And we can only recognize the dollars that you actually had expenditures for. So.
And our grant approvals drives it. A lot of them we use for salary and benefits because it all says the general fund and then which you have to pay any year just because they're people. So we try to put all the federal grants against salary and benefits. So it keeps down tax. About 300 and the 400,000 of federal money helps pay for our special education and our reading special.
I mentioned before that we would see a summary of the results of the audit. They're on page 15. So this is what I call a report card. And this goes to the federal government. One of the things we do after we actually issue the final audit report is we have to file with the federal government and we have to file with the state office of budget for Pennsylvania. And we do assist the school in filing those items. But you can see the unmodified opinion. And then basically, we did have one significant deficiency, not a material weakness. It was a deficiency largely due to the timing of when Ming came. We had a change in the business office and things were not closed out like they normally were. So we had more adjusting journal entries than we typically do. But I expect that that will not be an issue next year because I have worked with Ming and generally we have little to no entries when we come in and work with her historically. So entries. So if I look at cash balance was probably right, but recognizing a lot of the grants, we have to recognize the revenue based on dollars spent. We have to get the books to basically a modified accrual system. Oley, as well as every school in the state, basically records revenues and expenditures more on a cash basis throughout the year. Cash basis, cash in the door, when I get a deposit, just like if you're reconciling your bank account, when you receive money, you put it into your check, that little check stub, or you do it electronically, whichever way you do it. But if you're writing checks, you keep a balance of where your cash is at all points in time. We have to get to an accrual basis, which means that I may not have gotten revenue for everything I provided a service for. I have to record all that revenue because I did provide the service. Same thing with expenditures. We have accounts payable at year end. So there may be a couple adjustments, picking up invoices that came in after the end of the year that we haven't paid yet, but they were for things that were for our 2021 school year. So we're trying to pick up all the revenue and all the expenses that impacted the 2021 year. Those are the adjusting journal entries that were made. We typically have a few just because of the timing of an audit. I mean, we have to do an audit. You're just closing the books. You're just getting information. But this year we had more than normal because of the timing in replacing your business manager and getting that person up to speed, basically.
Well, there's, when was that?
What do you mean? When was the business manager made? When were you brought in?
Lori left the 20th of August and they started the 31st. So we had, and then the audit is fair week. So we lost 2 critical weeks in audit preparation. And those functions, because of internal controls, are only done by the business manager, not something that can be picked up by someone else. Because you don't want to do it twice, or you don't want to have to reverse a lot of those entries. So we worked late in preparing for the audit.
One of the things we have to look at when we finish the audit is we look at those number of adjustments. We look at the dollar amount, and we have to determine whether, there was an issue this year. And we felt there was an issue. It didn't rise to the material deficiency level, but it's one we had to basically report. And like I said, we expect to not see a problem next year.
You have not seen one like in recent history.
Right.
Yeah, this is new. Like our audits are normally, so just for the new board members, our state audits are normally very clean, no finding, no observation. It had to do with the timing of one person leaving and another one picking it up.
Basically, when you look at our bound report, the thick bound report, we do ask management to respond to our finding, and you can read that later, but there is a response in there basically that says that you will be closing your books out monthly and adjusting things. So that's really everything in our financial statement. Just talking about the management letter. The management letter had no issues, other than we reported the fact that next year the lease standard goes into effect. For most schools, it's not going to be a large impact because you own your buildings, you own a lot of your transportation vehicles. If you're leasing them, there will be some impact, and that will be in next year's financial statement. The other letter we do is the auditor communication. And that would explain and list any troubles we had with the audit. We did not have any troubles. I mean, when we finally got information that we requested, the information supported everything that we were looking at. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Any other questions?
Can you go to page 5?
Yes.
Expenditures. say it was due to, we got the minus,
The 1,288,000.
Yeah.
Basically, that was largely due to the support services area. And the big part of that was you did receive extra federal dollars. Basically, you're spending the excess federal sources up above the $1,629,000 in that category. Basically, the infiltration system, secured entrances to the buildings, just masks and those types of things, equipment, all related to COVID. Those were all to basically keep your students safe, and that was the purpose of those funds. So that's why you had, and when you did your budget, nobody had any idea those types of monies would be coming into the school.
I'm sorry, just going through. It seems like there's 2 million incoming, but then we are.
So when you,
Did you say we're overspending?
you're overspending your budget. That's what you're doing. So when you do a budget, I mean, you're probably working on what year now, 22, 23? I mean, you're using your best ideas of what your budget's gonna look like based on past expenditures. And if we took a look back, nobody knew COVID was going to exist. Nobody knew the results of that. Nobody knew the federal government was going to provide the school districts with the excess money to try and get students back into the classroom. So our revenues we received are over budget. Our expenditures, because we had to use those dollars we received, are going to also be over budget. Basically, you're over budget because you had to spend the federal excess dollars you received.
You mentioned security entrances. Were they also like part of the federal money?
I'm not sure all of the payments for the secured entrances came out of the federal dollars. I know the infiltration did.
The secure entrances all came out of the bond. The air handlers, the boilers, the chillers, a lot of PPE supplies, a lot of our day-to-day operations for COVID. We were between the various grants, we were able to offset a lot of that 800,000 overage and 700 some thousand overage in virtual schooling. Between BLL, IUA, Florida Virtual, the increase in charter school expenses last year, by putting things where they need to be, that's where a lot of that money comes. The key is that your revenues must always, at the end of the day, exceed your expenditures. As long as that happens, you're in good shape. But if you try to find grants throughout the year to help save money in other areas, in order to make sure your revenues come in above your expenditures at the end of the year, and we've done that traditionally for at least the last 12 years. We've not missed a budget yet.
One of the things I know we do offer, because we do have new board members, is in a separate session, if you're interested in just sitting down and going through an audit report, what does it mean to help answer questions, we'd be happy to do that. So.
That would be a good idea.
Have any other questions?
I think the audit went really well. I think Ming did a great job with Roxanne and the crew. We know that we had a glitch this year. The plan she has in place will take care of that for next year. And if that's the only, with the amount of money we were dealing with all these grants, and the grants are all clean, I think they've done an outstanding job in the business office. And your team is always professional as ever. I mean, really enjoy working with them. Do you know what year of the 3-year cycle we're on for renewal? Forgot to ask for us.
I'm not sure.
I thought we were in our 3rd year.
If not, we have one more year. So I know we're getting close to the
To
end.
the end of the, yeah, to the engagement level. So we would recommend that we just renew with, I mean, we're very happy with what they're doing. And the level of detail, and the nice thing is, working with Roxanne through the process, I had specifically asked that those federal dollars be audited on the books now. So if there were an issue, we could address it sooner than later. And the same thing will happen with all the other grants that I've been writing, for ESSER 3 and all the assorted other ones that have come out that we're trying to get, so that they are audited in time, so that you won't have an issue 3 years from now when the state auditors return. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This meeting, so. Next one's mine. You did a nice job with that.
Good. That's excellent.
Yeah. I love it. She's not allowed to go anywhere.
Good news.
No, we're gonna tie Ming to the chair. She's not allowed to go anywhere. No, I said you're not allowed to go anywhere. We're gonna tie you to your chair. You want to explain the next one?
Which one, the
The number two.
number two? For the IDEA.
Mhm.
Okay, we just received the BCRU. We are going to receive the extra money for IDEA. This, in the amount of $58,300. And this is based on the regular one, so this is extra money we can spend for that for 21, 22 this year.
Extra money is good.
Yeah, extra money.
Yeah, the
Thank you.
first one's like 265,000.
Yeah, regular is 200.
So this will also go against IDA, which is special education teacher salaries. So
Yeah.
that'll save us some more money in this year's budget.
Great. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Anything else for budget and finance? Questions from the community? Anything budget and finance? Hope you enjoyed the audit report. Sure. Question. There you go, Dr. Shamp. That's a good question.
What was I didn't hear the question.
So we have
sorry.
an exit strategy for the federal funds that will not be here. Coming
The,
up.
the key with the federal funds, I mean, IDA is something you get every year. So that's kind of different. We just got lucky and got more. The ESSER money, if you're referring to that, the key with grants, you always have to remember, whoever's going to be around, is you cannot buy people with grants. Otherwise, they're on your payroll forever and nobody has the money to do that anymore. So when we look at our ESSER grant and we write all of these grants, we're writing for what's known as one-time expenditures. So that's why we put them in to save money on from the capital reserve account, which she did mention in the unassigned section. That we're replacing boilers and chillers and blacktops and roofs and all that other kind of stuff off of grant money because it's once and done. So you don't have that reoccurring expense. So when these ESSER funds and COVID funds all go away, we haven't really lost anything because it's all, any of our normal operating expenditures that are annual are already built into the general fund. So you won't see what's called a funding cliff, where some districts you'll actually hear coming into the spring who took their ESSER money and used it as like a savings account where you wipe out your savings account to keep your household running. And then when it's gone, then you're stuck in a bigger hole than you started with. We don't, this board has not done that. They have only used that savings account for things they would have to have bought otherwise. So their operating does not change. So you won't see that kind of a funding cliff in the budget. So when the ESSER goes away, you're not going to see much of anything. The key is going to be in this year's budget for 21-22, which we're in pretty good shape with as of January 10th, barring no major problems, is that $1 million that we use to balance the budget to keep taxes low for 21-22 from where they originally should have been without the use of that, what we call reserve money or PSERS money, money that was saved over time by the board because of the pension increases that are coming every year. The more that we can not touch that, and we have not had to use it for about the last 10 years, that will help minimize those tax increases over time. So you're not going to see in this year's budget a funding cliff due to ESSER. We were just able to get probably about $3.5 million worth of facility work with new boilers, chillers, all those other kind of stuff done without hitting the taxpayer dollars at all. And a lot of the pieces that we did on people, like the long-term subs for the elementary and the middle school to help support students who are struggling academically, the agreement with OVA is they are one-time positions. So when the money's gone at the end of the year, all of those positions are gone as well. You don't have to continue to absorb them into your budget. It had to do with all of the back end of how you orchestrate with OVA, what that needs to look like, and making sure you have the paperwork that backs that up. So when the money's gone, the positions are gone. Does that make sense?
Mrs. Jackson. Are you have a question?
Mrs. Jackson?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was,
And any other questions on budget? A lot of people here tonight makes me nervous.
Oh,
Especially when it's budget.
we're
You
good
good?
with budget on it, yeah.
All right, Mrs. Jackson, you doing personnel?
Ms. Crowley, are you good? You look good. Okay, okay.
Can't see the poll is like.
Yeah, I got it. That's what I see.
On Mr. Keller's head.
Okay, Nancy, you want to run personnel?
yeah. I'm gonna turn that back to Dr. Shen.
Way to run it?
She's flipping it back to you.
I figured. Number one, Mike Vasquez is resigning as a part-time custodian at the high school. 2 full-time jobs is a lot for even a young person. Number two, Perry Beach, he is a second shift custodian at the middle school, resigning as of December 23rd. He has another employment opportunity. Number three is a transfer of Caitlin Westifer from the middle school secretary position to accounts payable receivable clerk. That is a replacement. If you remember in December, we moved the accounts payable receivable person into the fiscal assistant to the business manager. So Caitlin, who is a 2011 graduate, I'm very happy to have alumni on board with us. Great potential in the business office and what she'll be able to do in service of the district over hopefully a very long career here in the district. Number four is kind of sad, but I'm very happy for her. Kim Torchio, third grade teacher at the elementary, has announced her intention to retire at the end of the school year. Dana Kowalski, high school special education teacher, has resigned effective in December. She's being held 60 days. She has taken employment offer closer to home and more money. Number six, if anybody has questions, just stop me. Number six, appointment of the mentors to the 2 teachers you hired at Christmas. Lynette Davis for Alyssa Bingaman and Sherry Frisco for Crystal Fretz. They are the 2 special education teachers that we just hired at the elementary to replace the 2 that are retiring. Number 7 is Jen Hoffman to participate as the district representative to the P&C conference, which is Pennsylvania Education Technology and Computers Education at Hershey Lodge from 6 to 9, and then she'll bring that back and then train the rest of our technology and innovators in the district. Total cost is $848. We have updated with minimal changes the accounts payable clerk position job description and the fiscal assistant to the business manager. I think the biggest piece in that is Ming has decided she will take care of all the finances for IDA funding and our access billing. Good for personnel.
Any questions on the personnel changes? Personnel item?
Nope.
Anybody out there? Great job, Nancy, thanks.
Thank you.
I guess I'm up.
Yeah.
As a motion to approve the following new policies, 100 section programs for second reading, policies as listed. Whole bunch of them.
We'll just do that again Wednesday, just unless anybody has any questions on these specific policies.
There are plenty of questions. I would like to go over them.
That's fine.
I believe there's a difference between 100 policy comprehensive planning from what it was to what it is now. Student services. This is the new stuff, right? What is it? What is kind of services? Why you get into the policy? For that, where the money's coming from?
You mean the part that's in bold?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's student services. They have to write a comprehensive plan, every 6 years. They've had to do it. It's been law, it's not new, but it has not been in policy. So that was something that was added to address the fact that it has to be done, has to be put on public display for 28 days. Special ed is going to be done. She's working on it now for us. It's due in May, early June. And they'll come to the board and the board gets to review it. Student services is anything from our homeless, our foster, our virtual instruction or out of district placements, it's special education services, it's ESL services. It's all of those support services that students need to be successful.
Are they defined somewhere?
Student services, if you go to the PDE website and you type in the Google,
I mean, in our policy,
what,
in our policies, are they defined?
student services? No, student services is a broad catch-all for all of the social emotional support services, academic services, at-risk services for students. Some districts call it pupil services, some call it student services. It just depends on, it's not really defined in policy. It's really the jack of all trades for the educational division.
The policy number were you referring to?
Well, I'm just going with the first one, comprehensive planning. One. So that's the first one. On gifted education, on the previous policy, you had it with the Department of Education, and on this one, we don't have it, just oversight.
What number?
Same policy is down.
114, thank you.
Actually, it's not, I'm still on 100. On the back of it, it says gifted education,
Correct.
but for each one, you have plan to be Department of Education for approval.
Yeah,
So on this one, you don't have it, but you did have it in the previous policy.
right, because it's already, when we submit them, it goes straight to the department. It's not a separate upload anymore. So it doesn't need to be there. The system in which we build these comprehensive plans in is the PD system. They can see where we're at any given time.
Yeah, and it's just the inconsistencies.
Yeah, that's
why. Before,
We don't
and
need it.
all of a sudden it was not there,
Yeah.
so.
That's okay. We just don't need it anymore because they changed how we build them.
You also in the previous policies, you had pre-kindergarten education, but you
Yes.
don't no longer have it this year.
Because we do not run pre-K anymore, and we tried to get pre-K counts 2 years ago, and we can't get what we need in order to qualify for it, so we use pre-K counts and others. So because we don't have it, we didn't include it. We had been trying for it since probably 2016, 17. We do have Head Start, but we don't have pre-K. And we have ESCIU in early intervention, but I can't get pre-K counts approved in the district.
The next one, 101. Mission statement. I know that I've heard from the parents that we have an entry to learn, leave, serve. And parents were joking about, I'm going to make them serve burgers or what, like, would not be better. I'm just messing it off.
That's
Would that
been
be
since
better?
1907, wasn't it?
No, I understand, but so the parents brought it up and I'm getting it to the board.
Okay, I thought it was 1907.
Well,
You want to change the school
So-
model?
well, the suggestion was leave to lead, because as a leaders, you also serve the community too. But it's a higher aspiration, higher standard.
Maybe that would be a good start for our communications committee as a topic.
I'm just
But,
bringing it up for the board,
history of
like
the
I said,
the history of the
communicating.
valley, the history of the valley has been that slogan since the beginning of time.
No, I
So
understand.
It's always good in looking at future things, but that would be something for discussion with some of the parents that maybe spoke to you, could be invited. That would be something that the committee would certainly sit down and talk about.
I remember how it's like if anybody is so beat it up to the boards.
But I did serve burgers too, so I have no problem with serving burgers.
So did I.
We, like.
25 years, so murders.
Okay, 103,
103,
yes.
okay?
I have a lot of concerns about that because I think we have a reference to Title 9. Are we accepting, first of all, who's pushing those policies? Where do they come from?
This Title 9 is a federal requirement that we have to comply with. That's law. We don't have a choice.
Okay, well, is there a different definition in Title 9 that what we have here?
Title 9, it has to do with sexual harassment, discrimination, retaliation, all of those things.
All right, but then we have, here we have adding programs and activities.
That's correct.
And then now, when I looked it up, Title 9, there was just, I believe, on the sexual orientation, but there was no either sex or gender identity or anything like this. And what I see now, that the definition here is different from what I was able to research in Title 9.
This is
I
the-
may be wrong, but the thing is, that's why I'm asking those questions. Where it's coming from, who came up with those definitions, because I see discrepancy here.
It's all federal. And that definition, that includes sexual orientation and ancestry, all of that is all federal
And activities too?
activities. You cannot discriminate in terms of activities. So we have to do, for instance, we do a Title 9 athletic report every October that has to show how much money and how the facilities used for every girl sport versus boy sport. And they have to be within a certain percentage of each other, or we on violations, I don't know.
All right, and we don't get the federal money for Title 9, do we?
There is no money from Title 9. So what we call an unfunded mandate. We do have to implement it. We do have to make sure everybody is trained every year in Title 9. One of our what we call mandated trainings that we have to do. We are required for it. It was just a year ago. This was a big push from the federal level. We had to go through a whole nother full day training. And any of our activities, whether it's band or chorus or athletics, we cannot discriminate on the basis of any of those things.
So does it mean that it will allow transgender or biological male to compete in female sports?
No, that is a board decision. And then we had that, what we have defaulted to in this district, but not that we've had it. But we use the national, where you have to have gone through so much of the actual physical and emotional changes. There's thresholds on the national level for that, that we would use for that, but that is a board decision whether or not you would allow that to occur. If not, to my knowledge, we've not had that issue.
That would be brought to our attention.
Yeah, because that's not a decision we can make.
When it comes to the policy, you have to review everything that may come up.
Usually it's equal sport.
I'm not talking that, I'm talking
Yeah.
general, all the policies. Like if there's an issue for a complaint, that has to be brought to our attention.
Right, I do the investigation as a complaint officer.
Right.
And then we go from
That's
there.
how I understood it.
Yeah.
Well, I have concern because I believe it was 2 years ago in my daughter's basketball team, the team that came to play against our girls' team, they had a transgender in that team. That was unfair advantage, and actually,
It's not ours,
That's
has nothing to do with
That's
that.
their school, not us.
yeah, but then they were playing in our territory. They were playing in our gyms against our girls. So there were actually some physical contact that was very unfair.
That's not our decision.
Okay, so
That's PIAA. PIAA throws it back to the school, and then whatever your district does determines is what you follow.
well, now we're changing policies, then how are we going to address that?
That doesn't have anything to do with it. That's all PIAA. PIAA allows it, home district makes it, their team travels.
So in other words, we're accepting PIAA's standard.
We have, yeah, that's their standard.
Otherwise,
saying-
then we're not in that, we're not in it.
Right.
So they're not even coming. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
And as a fact, not to even talk transgender, just talk male, female. Years ago, we had other schools with males on female teams
Mhm.
that came here and played against our female team. So I've seen it, I've seen that before where schools allow it because that male in that school did not have the opportunity to play men's field hockey. So they played girls field hockey because they didn't have the opportunity. Yeah.
There's men's.
Oh, you bet.
Internationally, yeah.
Internet.
Seriously. Oh, that's-
Seriously.
It's actually very competitive.
Same thing with wrestling, like a girl who
Wrestling
wants
too.
to be
Same
a
thing with
wrestler.
wrestling.
The wrestlers don't have a girls team, they wrestle for the boys team. That's
Well,
all.
that's just wrong.
And that was on a sports page as a young lady just defeated a boy the other night
Yeah.
on the front of the sports page.
And there's two males and females swimming, beat each other up. I mean, one over the other, something like this, was also somewhere in the news.
Not sure about that, but it is PIAA and it's also federal.
Okay, the other one, does that entitle that we're gonna have an additional staff that we have to hire for those positions, the Title IX coordinator, compliance officer, or we already have those positions?
We already have those positions, they're administrative positions, combination, basically if Mr. Rhodes and on.
Yep.
So they have been in place.
Oh, they've been in place for a long time. At one point, it was in the year.
Yes, it was.
Next one?
Okay, yeah, there was also,
104.
the discrimination.
I have a question on 104.
I'm still in one of these.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the discrimination part. So now we're going in from Title IX sexual harassment, and then you go into discrimination. I'm a bit confused here.
Still Title IX. Sexual harassment discrimination is all Title IX.
Okay, and here's discrimination defines that race, age, creed. What's the creed, the difference between creed and religion?
I don't know an easy way to explain the difference.
What was the question?
The difference between creed and religion. I don't know how to simply explain it, so I don't even know.
Maybe that's the question you'd like to Dr. Fasten take and bring back at our next committee.
There's a dictionary.
No, because it's like we're having this forms, and then so they try to put it, I mean, there is definitions of what is not discriminate. I understand the religion, just with regular protected classes, but now we have the, okay,
Federal terms, and we have to use the federal terms of that on all of our letter, bottom of our letter.
I did not see that in Title IX.
I did a quick Google search and it said creed is that which is believed accepted doctrine, especially religious, a particular set of beliefs. And religion is the belief in and worship of a supernatural controlling power. If that helps.
Anything, right?
Basically.
And so if we can, I mean, could be anything, so you're not gonna be, and it's gonna be allowed in our school district. I don't know, I heard about the furries walking around in middle school. Is that also gonna be
You heard about the what?
furries?
I have no idea what.
Apparently,
Please tell me
I
what
was
the furries are.
I was
Are they
explained that it's
rodents
like
or are they?
kids that believe that they are animals.
They're furry animals.
Sounds like most.
Okay.
Oh, okay, and so what's gonna happen next? So we're gonna provide cat litters or something? I don't know, just like throwing questions.
I would hope that that's not what they're gonna be doing.
So, well, you say by discrimination, and then there's the whole broad definition of what's gonna be non-discriminated against.
You want us to eliminate the word creed?
That's federal.
Federal.
Federal, you can't change it.
She's got a question, but she doesn't have a solution.
I
That's
just-
what you asked.
I'm asking those where, because when I went to look,
Let's
and
just give you a definition of the word creed. A creed
they were
is-
not in those titles.
We're not making this up. I mean, nobody's just making this up. It's based on federal law and federal precedent. Well,
Could we possibly provide us with the actual federal votes? I had a hard time locating actually what I found the major, those classes, sex, religion, national origin, race. But I've never seen, like the gender orientation, and I did not see creed.
You go to the first page of the policy, it gives you all the I can print off all the numbers for the school code.
I
book.
did.
Yeah, SBA school
I tried
12.1, 12.4, 15.1, 4.4. Everything
I
down,
specifically would like to see the definition.
42 USC 12.101. Numbers, for those of you looking at online, it's numbers 113 on the front page of policy is where that's all referenced. The code of the United States Consolidated Statutes, it's in Consolidated Federal Regs, it's in Pennsylvania statutes, and numbers 1 through 13. And all
Yeah,
those
and
links are on the website.
Yes, and I found like the major, but I've never seen the creed. And later on, there's also like the gender identity. I did not see them in the titles that I looked at. I'd like actually specifically to see what, what the definitions are. So we don't add anything that's not.
You do understand you can't take them out. Those are federal. Federal law. Okay. Next one.
I saw there was something about also about not saying a joke.
So 103.
Yeah, I think so. So curriculum and materials. So is the materials going to be replaced based on Title IX, or we already have those things in place?
They're already in place. We have to make sure that if we're looking at a textbook or materials of some sort, that it balances gender, balances race, balances all of that stuff. It cannot be predominantly straight old school Caucasian. That's all required. We've done, that's been around for 20 years. They just call it different things. When you were looking at your definitions, did you look at the Office of Civil Rights? A lot of those are also found there. And we are bound to comply with that as well.
I went to the titles,
Yeah,
Title 7, Title 9.
look up Office of Civil Rights. It goes into a lot more detail on what you were asking. Because we have to submit every other year, even years, we have to complete a formal Office of Civil Rights report. And a lot of what you were just talking about. That's due this spring.
The delegation of the responsibility, number 4, student access. So one of that says have equal access and not segregated, except when permitted by law and regulations. We had the example of kids being segregated because of mask including having medical exemption and religious exemptions that were concerned of parents. How does that reflect on our policies going forward?
That doesn't apply to this at all. That's totally separate from this. That's not discrimination,
But it's segregation.
and not by this, and not by what this policy means.
Can we make sure that it's addressed somewhere? So for the future, we don't have the kids segregated?
That's a health and safety issue that doesn't belong in this 100 section. And that's not something that you would want to put into policy, because there are times in which you will have to segregate kids for health and other issues. Just as a student might have lice at the elementary and we have to let them in, and then we put them in a different part of the room. But you can't exclude them, but you also can't have them like sitting on top of everybody else on the carpet. Look at the elementary folks on my right. Gotta live that world. There are times where educationally needs do justify segregation.
So my question is more for,
Okay.
it just changed. What exists now is pretty much the same. It's just says sex, gender, and sexual orientation.
Correct.
Now it says genetic information.
Correct.
What's federal? What's why?
The federal people like genetic information, and whether you were, I'm just thinking.
I mean, I guess I'm looking at it from a standpoint. We can hire somebody that's walking around with our kids. That might be questionable to some parent. That's all I'm saying. Because of some genetic quote unquote thing that he or she thinks they are. There's two genders. Just two. That's it. I don't know why this has to be changed. To accommodate anything.
Because under the law, there's not just two.
What law?
Well, it goes back to the other policies in which we, as a public school entity, we have to be acceptance of all LGBTQ+. We are a public school governmental entity.
But if that's the case, then we gotta let them go into the bathroom.
Not necessarily, because that's a procedure, not a.
So we can still keep a procedure.
Correct, just as our procedure now is when we had the one case a few years ago where we had an individual who tried to, we went at the board's very much support and built individual bathrooms across the building that are open to all. So you're not discriminating against one side or the other. But now we can, as a practice, have that individual utilize either the nurse's office or those single use bathrooms, not gang. But there is law on both sides of that bathroom use nationwide. So depending, there's pro and there's ones against it, and the courts have not come down on.
So the question I have is, why are we changing the policy? Are they forcing us to change these policies, or are we just willingly doing it?
It's not that they're forcing us to change the policies are evolving based on federal law. It's not, our hands are kind of tied.
But if you don't,
You don't have to change the
but
policy.
if you don't change your policy,
Right, but you don't have to.
but you
Well, we
don't
do,
have to.
Because then we're in violation of the law.
Correct, and you'll get sued either way.
It's.
Yeah, but in other words, did the government, federal or state, say, okay, by such and such a date, this policy needs to be changed or else? Are they saying?
They're saying basically, if your policies do not match the law, then you could be sued for the policies not being up to date that you're following. So if you would decide to take out marital status out of your discrimination Title IX, just to use it, out of here, somebody can sue you because your policies are not incongruent with the school law. And they could actually come after that angle, as well as if you had it in here and somebody wanted to sue you anyway.
So the law has been passed?
The law, basically.
What law are they citing that has been passed that says there's more
It's
than
not necessarily
one,
like a
there's
written-
more than one?
It's not necessarily a written law, as much as it is local precedent. Like a court has
It's a
decided
case-
that this is
case
now
law.
something that cannot be considered, something you can discriminate against.
Remember, there's all.
Yeah, but the court doesn't make the law, they just, they
They interpret the law.
interpret it.
Right, but
And
the
it's
case
not
law.
It takes people then to enforce it.
No, they interpret the law to include that.
Correct.
Because
Which is why the policies are updated to match the case law. Because when case law changes things, even in the world of special ed, if case law changes something, then it changes all of the policies. It takes forever to get it into the code of 1949. But these have to be are supposed to be up to date at all times. Because these are the only thing that you have to stand on for or against the laws. If your policies are not up to date, then the chances of getting sued are actually greater than having your policies up, than having them not up to date. So
So, but who's telling us to put them up to date?
I am, because we are not in compliance, and part of my job under the school code is to make sure that your policies are up to date and with current law and case law. That's why we went with PSBA, because it also cites all the numbers for all of the areas in which this authority section under 1, 2, 3, 4 through 12 is in all of these statutes or regulations that are listed on it. So all the laws are documenting to the policy.
Yeah.
Back.
43 PS 336, 43 PS 951, it's all in the first section of the policy. If you look at the policies online, you'll see that the first 13 areas represent all the numbers behind the section. So on Mr. Keller's question on policy 104, you have the authority section, and then you have 12 numbers. Those 12 numbers all reference the United States Code, Consolidated Federal Regs, or Pennsylvania statutes, where that section comes from. Sure. And all the links to all of those things are on the left-hand side of the website where the school board is. So if you click on that and then you put it in the search bar, it'll pull up those sections. Sure. That's why part of what I'm doing with this policy manual rewrite is making sure, because like I live this world, because that's just what I do every day, unfortunately, that you as a parent would have that information and know, like, to be able to look at number 2 and look at number 2 in the list and know exactly where to go if you wanted to see what that law was. So that you have that, and it's very transparent. We're not sitting around just kind of making life just difficult for people. These are things we have to do, and our policy is kind of the guiding principles that legally we have to live by. But the part that we don't have in the current manual is, where did it come from? You know what I mean? And like, a lot of people need to know that we just didn't come up with this creed and race and everything. The law is telling us we have to do that. And 90% of what the board does, I hate to say it this way, we really don't have control over, because it's done by the regulations, it's done by the school code, it's done by the Department of Health, it's done by the Department of Education. Like, they tell us 90% of what we have to do every day, and we really don't have a choice.
Is it because we're taking federal money?
No, it has nothing to do with federal money. You can give back the $4 million and you still have to do it all anyway.
And if the archaeologists discover the skeleton and they do the DNA testing, they're going to determine it's going to be female or male, so it's going to be 2 sexes still.
That's not, has
But
nothing
if
to do
we
with
don't
us.
change this, nothing happens unless
Somebody makes a point.
somebody tries to make a point.
And
But
if
the fact
somebody,
is,
At
and
this
if
point, we
somebody,
can stand up and say, no, that there's.
No, the
two
lawyer, the
Their
lawyers will
point
come
be a
back.
lawyer suing you.
At some point, they're gonna find that dusty old document from 1791 and say there's 2 genders. That's
Right.
it.
But the thing, when the lawyers come back,
We need to push back on this, or we're just gonna keep allowing this
interpretation of,
nonsense, what it is.
This isn't the level of pushback. I mean, what do you want us to do? I guess the problem is, I understand.
We're not gonna
what you're
vote
saying.
our way out of it.
What's that?
We're not gonna vote our way out of this on the local or federal or national level.
Yeah, but I don't want to expose
People
the school
need to-
district to some silly lawsuit just because we decided to change a word in the document. And people will do that.
and people will do that. I'm just trying to
People with
listen
deep
in my
pockets who
head
just
right now.
decide they want to.
That's what I'm saying. It opens up the door to allow all kinds of.
I don't want to be
extracurricular
another
stuff going on
Virginia.
in the
Well, that's the part I
School
disagree with,
district.
because as much as I understand what you're saying, people take it to the extreme. I mean, the other year we had a transgender student, people were talking about a boy walking into the girls' bathroom and claiming he was a female. But the problem is, he broke 900 rules doing that because he never told anybody he was claiming to be a female. I mean,
Okay,
there's policies and stuff in place to keep that from happening. And all we're trying to do here is the best we can to abide by the rules of law that she's obligated to do.
Or you.
And I mean, that's the best we're trying to do. And to your question earlier, like, if we were to hire a teacher, I mean, the teachers go through such a vetting process here that if they were to sneak through with that, I don't even see it happen.
well, the bottom line is the concern for the kids.
But
How do
this
we
is
protect
opening
our
that.
children?
Door's already open. Difference is you don't have it in the paperwork, so you're opening yourself to frivolous lawsuits, that your first check you write on a frivolous lawsuit is $25,000, and it goes up from there. Because on a federal lawsuit case, whether it's special education, whether it's discrimination, whether it's Title IX, the district pays both sides of the legal fees, and you will lose. So you can write a check for opposing counsel for 100, and you'll pay your counsel for 100, and at the end of the day, they will order you to have to do it, $200,000 later. Federal, you pay both sides. State, it's a little different, but any federal lawsuits, the district's responsible in the end. Even if the person gets $1, you pay all of their legal fees annually. And on a frivolous, in a lawsuit where we are automatically not following law, and not that I understand what you're saying, but my job is to make sure you're compliant. If you don't follow that, your insurance carrier will not cover the case. So if they know you intentionally left out marital status out of this authority line, if somebody sues you, they will not cover it, and you could be in for millions of dollars.
All right, then how are we going to protect our children and carry out the values in the community?
Start your own school.
The vehicle's in place.
And I don't mean that as a joke. I mean, that's why a lot of people are starting their own cyber schools, like using, and I'm just using the community here. Say you want to use the Fair Center, you'd use the Fair Center and you rent that from the car company. And then you would use our BLL programs and you would go there and have all the kids in one place and you could educate them on anything you want. We deliver the curriculum, we pay the bill. So why so many cyber charter schools and brick and mortar, as well as all of these kind of what we call one-off charter schools, are forming in basements of houses. They're forming in basements of churches or large group halls, because if you have your own school under your own lane, you could use our curriculum, but make up your own rules. Whoever you want in, you let in. That's why so many of these cyber schools are forming everywhere across the state of Pennsylvania, on the East Coast. I'm not familiar with Midwest and West Coast, but that's why so many people are breaking out of public education, because they don't agree with the fact that we educate all. We are responsible for all, whether we agree with it or don't agree with it. When they are in our doors, we must treat them all equally with no judgment.
So you're going to be discriminating against the biological females, allowing the biological male to go into their bathroom?
We in this district have decided, what, 4 or 5 years ago, we do not use bathrooms.
So that, and the vehicle we did that with.
It was a board.
Is what? Board
Yeah.
has that, we have that out, we have that in place that we can completely do that.
Yeah. You'll
And
get
we don't-
sued.
And we
but
don't get sued, and we will get.
You're gonna get sued right away. The frivolous lawsuits right now, not only here, but across the state, are ridiculous, because you, as a parent, you have nothing to lose because we pay both sides. Under any federal count, like Title IX, the district pays both sides of the attorney fees. So if I wanted to, if I was a parent and I didn't agree with, Dr. Fatkin's student who played soccer, who's going to use the grade on soccer. And I didn't agree with, because they looked at my child funny, I would claim that he discriminated against them. He's a school board member. I'm going to sue the district. I get $1, but I spent $150,000 in legal bills. Bills are paid. I got nothing to lose. So why wouldn't I file for those lawsuits? Number of what we've had over the years, whether they're special ed or otherwise, has been increasing.
And those
Because you have
schools,
nothing to lose. As long as they claim Title IX, they're on for it.
isn't there any reconciliation for those frivolous lawsuits to
No.
go back?
None.
So there's no protection.
No,
Against frivolous lawsuit?
No.
Yeah,
not for schools.
Not unless we press it.
But you
We
won't
have-
win
we
it,
have-
because you got to prove that it's frivolous, and they'll come up with some story, and then the judge will. You have to remember, it is parent and child against the big deep pocket school district is the perception, because of our insurance carriers. But the difference over the last 5 years has been the insurance carriers, if the district does something that is not congruent with law, or not what they call, or takes action that is negligent, the insurance carriers will not cover the case. So then the district coffers, or taxpayer money, is then paying both sides of the house, the parent attorney as well as the district's attorney, to fight a case. And then if you try to fight back, you'll spend more money in lawsuits than you're ever going to win. Because there isn't a judge that will go against, a small parent against a big district. Whole system is broken. But that's the reality in which we live in. So if your policies are not up to date, and you're not following the law, then you're gonna get sued and you're gonna lose, and then your insurance premiums go up, plus your cash outlay.
Basically over that.
You got it. That's, yes,
Sum it up.
yes.
And you're saying the federal government basically owns.
Well,
basically what-
I wouldn't say that. I'm
Whether
just
they're giving
saying,
us money or not, they,
whether you have to do this, whether you give away $3 million that we got in money, free money to fix things, which is what I use it for, or not, you still have to do this. With or without COVID money, with or without title money, with or without any of that, you are responsible to abide by all the laws and rules. That's part of the oath that you all took. To abide by all the laws and rules, not only of the Commonwealth, but of the federal, because the state follows federal. Remember, the Pennsylvania Department of Education is responsible to the federal Department of Education. So, and a lot of our special ed funding, which is probably close to $2 million, all comes federal. It's called pass-through and comes through into public education through the intermediate unit, straight from the state, all these other places. So you can give back all this free money you want, but it's not going to change the fact of what you have to do legally.
Folks, I mean, philosophical conversations are a lot of fun, but there are 52 policies on this list, and we're on the 7th one, so if we can just move on a little bit, sorry. It's all right,
I'm just trying to explain. Like,
no, I appreciate that, I do, and for the benefit, if they didn't know, I just,
and that's the thing.
it's just, what's the point of the board?
Correct. I hate to say that, but
What's the point of a public school, period?
right, but the
it's
Department
a,
of
you said it's
Education.
a public school.
It's a public school, so it has to be governed by public board members, which
Right,
is
no,
on the
I
10th of, but theoretically, the power of the board is not what people think it is. You only have about 5% of control over what happens in the district.
Yeah.
We are told what to do with the rest,
Unless there's enough boards that push back across the
which is
state.
not gonna happen.
Hmm.
That's happened so many times over the last 30 years.
Wow.
Doc, you were in this longer than I
But
was.
anyway, to your point though, the cyber school, et cetera, if I pull my kids out and do that, they then get out with maybe what I consider a superior education or different, whatever.
but yeah,
But then they have to work with perhaps, or be in public with people that came from this.
correct.
Absolutely.
So how do you?
That would be
so
up to
that's
you
why-
to
that's
teach
why
them.
I'm here. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
how would I?
Yeah, that's where you would have to teach them the way you want to have them assimilate into the rest of society. That's just, I mean, I'm just being honest, that's just the way it is.
Good, that was one of the 4, any more?
Like the business exercise?
Yeah, I mean, I got that far and those were the ones I was most.
No, I went through a lot of them, but it's like what you're saying is basically we are just puppets. Puppets of the federal government.
If you want that
And
level of change,
there's
that's not
no
here.
way for us to protect the community values or anything like this, except just leaving the public education. Is that right? Just bottom line?
Bottom line is the only thing that we really control is what we teach, how we teach, what we are required to teach. Like what textbook we choose to use or what, program we would use for intervention. The rest of it is all given to us. Even as far, and I know that you have opposition to PA Common Core standards, but standards are in the state code. We have to teach them. We have no choice. And that's what a lot of people who come on, I'm on my soapbox, sorry, but I've just been doing this for 20 some years. That a lot of people who come onto the board think that they have the, I don't want to say power, but they'll have the ability to make systemic changes. None of us do, even in my job, because I have to meet with all the requirements of the Department of Ed, plus I have to follow all these policies, plus I have to follow all the federal laws, and the board is the overseer to make sure I'm doing my job. But in the end of the day, we really don't have control. The only people that really have control of their education are your cyber charters, your magnet charters, or your private schools or your parochial schools, because they don't have to live by the same rules and regulations that public schools do. And that's why you see a lot of people exit public education into those domains and do extremely well, because they and their parents then control what they are exposed to, how they are exposed to it, and then how they, assimilate on into colleges. But the local level does not have that kind of control.
So just real circling back around, we can, as a board, keep the boy from going into the girls via.
Yeah.
Procedural.
Yeah, and we don't allow it. I mean, you're
Okay,
gonna have
that's
kids
what
who are
I'm
gonna
saying, that's
drive.
just an example I'm using.
We don't
Right.
allow.
So
We
we
don't
have a
allow it.
procedural, thing.
Yeah.
Same thing as a sport.
But to,
Right.
We
good
can,
point.
we can do the same thing.
You're still gonna get sued, but you can take that stand. Yes.
Right, that's what I'm.
That's a
we have
procedural
that.
stand, not a legal stand. Two different things.
It's a procedural.
Yeah,
So
they
that's
gotta,
the vehicle.
How we
still
deal
have
with it.
Control.
in your
That's all.
little kingdom here, that's how you, that's a procedural change, that's not. And the rest of this, you're gonna see a whole bunch of these coming through and they're all gonna be the same thing. But unless you can change it at the state level or the federal level, you're not gonna see it on that systemic. We really haven't had much of an issue with it. And we have kids that will try it now and then, but for a lot of
I mean,
reasons.
you have to understand, I don't care. You know, to me, it's like leave your sexual orientation.
At home, right?
Just leave it at home.
Focus
We
on
don't
education.
need to express ourselves and we're not allowed to walk around with a cross or flaunt it or say, God bless or amen to people, but we're allowed to allow that. You get what I'm saying? So if we want to leave that, if we're leaving that at home, we're leaving the other thing at home too. That's my.
Actually, you are allowed to do that. That law's changed too.
Well, then you're supposed to say happy holidays, you're not even supposed to decorate. You know what I mean?
But if you do one, you have to do them all. So you have to do Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, yeah, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas,
Well, no,
and you're okay.
I.
That's why we do holidays. It's shorter. I don't have enough
I'll give you that,
email. So,
but you're right. Oh.
I do. Oh, sorry, forgot about
Sorry.
like 105 series. It's about the instructions for students and materials and whatever educational curriculum.
what number?
Currently, right
105
now,
series.
105 series. Yeah, there's just like a whole bunch of them. The thing is, and I've seen the other school districts start to do that. All this is posted online rather than by parental request. So that's the suggestion I would like to bring to the board. So the information is available for parents for review rather than them just, constantly requesting it. Then specify what it is, then you have to go and satisfy every single parent. Once it's all online, it's online.
It is online.
No,
Where's
it
catalog
says
or-
actually like guidelines upon request by parent, guardian, student.
If
the
you
district
request
makes-
something specific, like a syllabus for a class, then we have to provide it. But our curriculums are all online.
Oh, well, they have like a syllabus. I mean, they have it more detailed, not just
Right, but the
curriculum.
teachers change that throughout the year. It's one of the things they're doing on their early dismissal on Friday is working on their mid-year syllabus to make sure we're on track for where we need the end of the year. They're constantly changing. That's why we don't post that. That's why if Mr. Keller says, I want the syllabus for this class for my son, we get it right now because it is the most. But the plan course outlines, otherwise known as curriculum, that the board approves. Once the board approves them, we post them under the curriculum section of the website.
Okay.
So if you want to look at what fifth grade math looks like, you go to the website, you pull it down. But if you want the syllabus for that class, we go to the teacher and they give us the
Okay,
most
gotcha.
up to
All right.
date one.
Okay,
Otherwise, if you get September's and it's not
Okay.
gonna look like,
okay,
okay?
got it. Thank you.
Any others? Good,
Yeah.
good. Dr. Back in?
I relayed my question yesterday.
Okay.
Maybe out there?
Contract tracing is required from DOH with anybody that we are as loose as we can get. We do 3 feet instead of 6 feet and it's 5 days, but we are required to do that. That's allegedly, hopefully, my back end people at PDE are saying that hopefully by Easter it'll go away. We are hoping it goes away tomorrow because it's a real pain, but we have to do contract tracing.
But let's, we'll get to the health and safety plan later.
Yeah.
Yeah, and mostly what we're seeing right now is a very high transmission rate, especially in the elementary. So a lot of the kids who are contact traced are coming up positive. I think we wiped out before Christmas. I think the half of second grade was gone from contact tracing, and a lot of them came up positive over Christmas because I was getting emails from the parents who weren't real happy. So yeah, contact transmission, I'm just being honest, transmission in schools is high right now. I think we contact traced. I didn't get the high school number or the high school number on the last case today. Middle school, elementary took out about 11 today alone, and middle school I think was 15 out of 2 cases. High school, I didn't get the update before I came down. But and a lot of those will come up positive. The nice thing is it's only 5 days now instead of 10.
Again, we'll do the health and safety plan later. So is anybody, any more questions on policy? Curriculum, Dr. Marcus.
I have 2 motions this evening, Dr. Shank.
The first one is a service access management agreement to communicate with SAM. They come in on our risk assessments. They come in to provide students who need mental health and therapeutic support. And they also are able to work with families outside to set up services for family-based counseling. Number 2 is Salisbury Behavioral Health. That is one of the outside residential placements that we're using for some of our students who go in through the hospital and end up in residential mental health placements. These agreements just allow us to share information back and forth about the treatment plan for those students. There isn't any.
No cost.
This is no cost.
No, it's just,
Just
just to
information.
share information.
Nancy, you okay with that? Okay. Aaron, you're good.
I'm good.
We're good.
Any questions after?
Questions on that from the community? We're good.
Mrs. Jackson, student activities?
Yes, there's 4 motions on here this evening. They seem fairly self-explanatory. I don't know, Dr. Shank, if you have anything else to add to those.
No, TSA competing. We should have a really good run at regionals with Mr. Buckner and Mr. Mole, and about 35 students. They are taking a few middle school up to expose them to TSA, and then we are implementing the TSA club for competitions in the middle school as well. And then the high school TSA state conference, we're expecting about 20 students to qualify for that. We have the assistant musical director for the high school. And then we've sent thank you letters or in process of the donations in memory of Jean Heinrich, who's a former teacher here, and all of those to the art department, as well as we thank everyone for their donations to Angel Tree. We raised over $14,000 and supported almost a little about 101 students for Angel Tree this year.
And did I hear the musical is Mamma Mia?
Correct.
Yes, can't wait.
Yes.
Can we have a parent sing along? Special requests, afterwards.
So, okay. Anybody in the committee have any questions on those?
Any questions on any of those? Nope. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Ms. Perry.
Communications, Dawn, do you want to take the 3rd one there? Well, in order to do that, I think we should talk about the one first. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Dr. Shank, can you get that hand? Oh, okay. Dr. Shank, go
All
ahead.
right. Well, there was a discussion about trying to increase board communication in the district and what the board needs to do to reach out to all persons and not just select groups. I think Dr. Markey had brought it up too at the last meeting to ask it for it be an agenda item. So basically, I had reached out to Ms. Perry to ask her if she could assist me in researching some websites and board sections of websites of other districts who have a lot more people than we do, to figure out what else we could put up, whether it's has to do with the law, with programming, with some other pieces as far as what we could do to do an outreach this spring and early summer to increase the communication between board and our community in general. and what information we need to share as well. So if people have suggestions, anybody has ideas, please let, Ms. Perry, Mrs. Zakin, and Dr. Fatkin, what they would. We've tried to do everything from having community meetings and nobody shows up. We've tried to send out other stuff. We're posting more on the website. Megan's working on updating the business office website so that there's more financial information on there for transparency. We're just not really sure exactly what people want to read in order to drive people to the website to have that as a repository for information.
Well, to be honest with you, the website is like walking in the woods in the dark, break up your leg. It's not that easy. It's not really user friendly. Just even the 30-day review, I brought up the question because it was not very transparent to look up the policies or what exactly was for review. Was a whole agenda listed? So is that a whole agenda for review or it's a specific policy for review? So it's really not easy to navigate, and I understand the agendas. I understand that team was not available to put it up yesterday, but is it possible maybe for them to get a little bit more proactive and do it maybe Friday or Saturday, even though we only 24-hour, in a sense, posting the agendas up? So have it a little bit more heads up. And same for the board members. I know for myself, I'd like to see the agenda more than 24 hours, at least get a little bit more review, maybe Friday the week before would be nice to receive it.
Well, the issue right now is we actually don't have a board secretary.
Well, and you still wouldn't have it because under the new sunshine law, we have been advised to wait 24 hours because once you put it up, well, committee meetings are different, but board meetings, because once it goes up, you can't change it. So
You can't add, but you can take it out.
Yeah, but we don't usually take out, we add. So I wait till we add until noon on Tuesday and then we post Tuesday.
That's for the meeting. That's for
Yeah.
the general.
And the agenda, and normally our agendas go up on Sunday, but when you have a tech department that's fighting COVID, they weren't on
Well,
computers.
I'm not debating that. I'm sure
Yeah,
there's issues. My problem to add to her, it would be nice to get it Friday.
It's not done on Friday, we do it over the weekend.
You actually do it over the weekend.
Haven't you noticed all the emails you get from me all weekend?
And I just didn't know.
I work all weekend. Watching football and doing agendas, that was my Sunday. But that's what I do, and that's what Maria, when she was, the secretary, she'd work all day Saturday and Sunday on agenda. We don't have time during the day to do it, even when you have us. And I know Janet Keene, who was the secretary before Maria, she did the same thing. It's a lot more work than people realize, but we're still getting agenda items coming in until usually Saturday nights. We want to make sure it's as clean as possible, when we do it.
Well, that's part of the reason too that we went to number 3, correct? About
Right, that's
creating a director of human resources and public relations. And this would be a budgeted increase with, we would pay this person to do those kind of things.
right. The public relations person wouldn't deal with the board side of the house, but they would be able to do press releases. They would be able to cover events. They would be able to do more outreach to the newspapers. They would be able to do more of the articles, a lot of the other things that are coming. We can't really afford a public relations person because of being a small district. We are in desperate need, and we've talked for several years about a human resource person for your next, especially with your next superintendent, because I do about 25% of that job because a sports staff person who is Deb Berniker is outstanding, who is certified through the Society of Human Resource Management, has taken the courses, taken the tests, she is certified in that. She does a lot of it, but because she's not an administrator, she can't sign it, she can't deal with PDE, she can't do accountability, she can't get into a lot of the detail of the interviewing, making sure your paperwork, all the clearances, all that other kind of legal stuff that keeps you out of water. The reference checks, consistency, there's a lot of rules that go with HR. Is taking her position and moving it into an administrative position and public relations. What she could do, I know the suggestion was made at one point, which we didn't have the people to do it, was like the 2-minute talks. If you go around to an elementary or a teacher or administrator or a board member and be able to have them like interviewed on camera and ask questions and post it on the website, post it on that's a Steam Fest, or it's a PTO function, or have somebody who has the time and the knowledge in order to do that. So what we were proposing was that we take Deb's position, and it's about a 12,000 increase in the benefits in Act 93. HR cannot be in Act 93 under the school code, but the benefits would be an administrative position. So then instead of having her give it to me, I have to call PDE because she's a sports staff person, not an administrator. Then she would be able to do much more of that, but also have the time, the flexibility and the time without having to pay a ton of overtime for her to cover all of the events and the other activities that go on across the district to try and really get out positive things that are happening in the district. And there are a lot of them, we just don't have the time or the personnel really to cover.
So what you're saying in all those words, you want, what's her title now?
She's executive assistant to the superintendent.
And you want to change her title to what?
She would be the director of human resource and public relations.
And you want to give her a $12,000 raise? That's what you're saying.
With the overtime that she's doing now as a support staff person, and then to the administrative, that in what looking at the county, that would be about what the HR people in the county are doing.
Just create a new position, put her in,
That's what you're saying.
right? Not just adding to what she's doing
In
now.
other words, you're talking about adding the 12,000 to her base salary. She's already
With a new title.
with a new title, but.
No overtime, no,
Right, in other words, you're not including your overtime expense.
that's part of that
Sort of
12.
be swallowed up by.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, yeah, because she
Well,
makes
I-
probably 6 or 7 a year
She's
just in
already-
overtime alone.
I would say this, if you bring that information to the next finance committee meeting and give you the numbers that she's done for overtime and what the numbers look like totals, then I would certainly look at it with my committee, because right now I wouldn't want to raise any numbers at all before we go through this finance process. Because I want to make sure we stay as low as we possibly can on millage increase. So that, yes, we do need somebody to do that, but I would say I'd like to see the numbers when we have our big meeting in February.
And I have a question. Who's doing the job now?
I'm
For which one?
both. It's part of my 4 or 5 full-time jobs.
You're delegating some of the stuff to her that she can do,
Yeah,
but she gets to a brick wall and says, okay, now you gotta fix
And
it.
she takes over.
But she's not,
right.
that's how I got it.
Yeah, she asked if we needed if you hired an HR administrator, you'd be paying about 80,000. For that
She's making
position.
almost that now.
She's making about, probably about 55, right?
But with
And then,
the overtime,
in the overtime, she's probably pushing 60.
In the benefits for Act 93, how does that work out? Because HR should not be under Act 93. Is
Right,
that-
just like the
conflict of
business
interest?
manager's not, under the law, they can't be, but their benefit package is tied to Act 93. They just can't officially be in the group under.
Vacation days, sick days.
Right,
all that
okay.
stuff.
Okay.
I think that it was just a discussion, and I think it should.
No, I
be
know,
brought to
that's-
budget.
Right.
But that's fine.
And I know it's not budget, but I can tell you that by moving the summer buildings and grounds crew over to SOS, instead of on our payroll, we've saved that right there.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I
Well,
mean-
I like saving.
I know you do, and I knew I couldn't ask without finding it, so
But,
I'm taking this,
Bring-
doing this.
bring it over on our nice
Yeah.
sheet that you do.
Right.
And give me some numbers about what she's currently at, what it would be, and her overtime, what that would be, because in the long run, we might be saving money. Always nice.
Right, but it's nice to see. the
But I
numbers.
want to see it.
Yeah, and it would be an administrative increase, it's not a lateral,
Right.
because this job would require more overtime as a PR, but you don't pay overtime as a minister. So if it's an 80-hour
No,
week, it's
sure
an
don't.
80-hour
I
week,
know that.
and instead of a 40 hour.
Okay.
I think she made probably 7,000 last year in overtime.
Yeah.
So-
Dr. Shank, do you have a tentative job description for her yet, or for this position
Yeah,
yet?
I do have one drafted. I didn't bring it tonight because I didn't know if anybody would bite or not, even on the discussion. I know the HR piece is also something Mr. Heckman's been on me about trying to find, especially as you start to look at the realignment of the central office staff. Making sure that HR piece is going to be critical because your legalities are really going to come out of that. Hiring and references and processes and, all that other fun stuff.
Okay.
But it would take also stuff off the plate of your next week.
And the other thing, Mary Lou, is there any way we could work with technology to maybe get a little like a Dropbox, you could put suggestions in, and then Dr. Shank could just look at those and then we throw them back to you as a chair and say, you know what, the next topic for 10 minutes is the topic of the school slogan.
Sure.
You know, and that way, you know, at least it can be filtered quick, dropped in the box. And then you come up with a topic for 10 minutes, not 3 hours, but something to at least talk about, but bring it before us, just like we talked about this.
You could,
Or something.
if you talk to Jim, he can do a Google link for you, and then it drops it right into a Google file that everybody can see.
Okay.
That way it gives them the opportunity to
When
go
I call
back and,
tomorrow-
give us an
Okay,
idea.
yeah, when you call back in your email, ask him about doing a Google link off the board site that just call it a suggestion box.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, I'll talk to him, but that way it's right there, and then you drop it in, and then once you drop it in, it's, you only. So nobody can go in and add it.
About the school board, the float for the anniversary of the fair. Anybody has any suggestions for, a statement that we can use? This is what I thought of, and asked on. But I thought one of the things we could do is the key to the future is education. And my idea was to get the art students involved, that they could design the banners to go on the things, and also that each one of us would give the students a t-shirt in your size, and they would design a t-shirt for each one of us. An individual student would design our t-shirt to represent that and to represent us, so that you can possibly get to talk to your student too, that, chooses is going to make your t-shirt for you. Just thought that was a little bit more interactive. But if anybody else has any good ideas, please let me know.
Suggestion box.
Yep. Yeah,
Absolutely.
let me know what you think, okay? It's not until next, is it September? Yeah, the end of September. But, we would probably want to have it actually done, if we're going to include the students in the art department and everything like that, before the end of the year. So, think it over, if you like that idea, or if you have another idea. We can, I don't know if we have to vote on that, or probably not. No.
Communication. Alrighty, then move on to other, we have a motion to ratify the 2022 Health and Safety Plan and exclusion chart changes. As presented, Dr. Schenker advised that, sent that out last week, everybody, so.
The big change from CDC is the fact that it's a 5-day quarantine period now, as long as you remain symptom-free. And then days 6 through 10, you will have to wear a mask. And the mask is well-fitting, form-fitting, whatever you want to call it. Gaiters and face shields do not count for that. And if somebody doesn't want to wear a form-fitting, well-fitting mask, then they just quarantine for 10 days. We are seeing, as I mentioned, a transmission in schools, which I don't know a district in the county that's not. And then we do require, the doctor's notes, and the home tests are go by the date of the test. But that's really the only major change on.
Where, and you have that updated and on the website now. So now where does it say, as a parent, where in the world does it say you gotta pick this kid up?
For close
It's
contacts?
not allowed to go on the bus. Now, I'm digging and I'm looking and I can't find it.
For close contacts, that we have to send them home. That's under the, it's under DOH, and it's on there that if you are deemed a close contact, then you've got to quarantine for 5 days, so therefore we can have you in school, which is why we call you.
Can I read something from Hamburg? They are hearing, and actually they're going masks optional. As far as quarantining, they're not quarantining asymptomatic people. Quarantining of the COVID-19 asymptomatic. No personnel or representative of the Hamburg Area School District may attempt to force, require, or otherwise coerce any asymptomatic person to either obtain a COVID-19 test against his or her expressed will or to quarantine. And since COVID-19 has been found to infect those who are vaccinated against it, as well as those who are not vaccinated against it, for those who have either tested positive for COVID-19 or have shown symptoms of COVID-19 infection, the PDE installation guidelines for unvaccinated person will apply regardless of vaccination status. So this is what they have. So there's also about the vaccinations themselves, and they will not, like looking into the future, require the vaccination passports. I would be happy to forward the whole thing from Hamburg to the school board. Unfortunately, like I said, I got it.
And that would, so.
First solicitor, I'll tell you, I mean, that, what they're doing is against the orders. But that's their community and that's what the, that's what they therefore decide to do. At this point, our board has followed the close contact and contact tracing guidelines as presented. Which means when we have a close contact, we do get them out as soon as we can. Because transmission is occurring. Foot valves the same way, foot valves really asymptomatically live them in, but the physicians will tell you that even asymptomatic would be a carrier. So we have some of that at the elementary.
Remember I sent a link to Just Facts, and they did do the study, 450 people that were in contact with a person who was diagnosed, but asymptomatic. None of the 455 people actually conducted a virus. There's a lot of studies actually posted in that link.
Someone lines to the
Go
study?
ahead,
Wendy?
Wendy.
Wendy? She unmuted.
Wendy,
Did you raise your hand?
Are you unmuted?
Sorry, we can't hear you. Anybody else on board? I mean, comfortable with the way we had it. Question.
I'd like to, is there a differentiation between mandates or guidelines? So what are we going by?
What do you mean by mandate?
No, it's like, I see that, obviously there's that 5 days after the person comes back, wear the mask. That seems to be, if you come back, that's what do you call it, the incubation period and whatever, right? Is that the guidelines? Is that?
That's what we've been told from DOH, is that is what we are to follow in public schools.
Is it the recommendation or mandate?
DOH has said this is what you're supposed to do. You can call it. Places they say
What do
may,
they-
some places they say must in the same.
What do they call it?
But the way, all right, so Hamburg, she read what Hamburg,
Yep, that's a board decision.
as a board decision that the solicitor had to write it, correct?
But that solicitor does, in Hamburg, solicitor doesn't have to write that.
Any
Yeah.
solicitor.
Any solicitor.
That can
So
just
I
be
mean,
somebody in
if
the
the
board
board decided
that
tonight
can do it,
to direct the administration to change the health and safety plan to no contact tracing, then that's, and then you approve it on Wednesday, then that's what we do.
The ramifications of anybody doing that have been
At this point, no.
here.
Doesn't mean you can't be sued tomorrow, but as of tonight, right now, we've had no Hamburg has, to my knowledge, Hamburg has not. Dr. Nussdorf has not said anything, just as Dr. Wintersheen. The incubation period is usually 2 to 3 days. That they do the 5 days because it's from exposure, it's 2 to 3 days. We read.
The problem I have with that is it's a little, I'm not trying to, I don't know if you designed it or who has designed it or got it designed. But it's erring on the side of the vaccine. You have a vaccine, you can say, oh, you're being rewarded for
Exactly.
getting the jab. For getting a jab that has clean efficacy and it's been proven that it doesn't keep you from getting it.
And then you need to get another one and the third one and the fourth one.
CDC just came out that it doesn't stop transmission. You knew that.
I mean, that's on the CDC
Okay.
website. So that's my problem.
Yeah, this is what has been in since August. Minor tweaks along the way. This is what we were given. This is also used in the Montgomery County Health Department. It comes from DOH, a little format.
Is that what you got?
I didn't write that. I'm not that good.
Well, no,
I'm not-
I actually would have
I'm a
thought, I
doctor,
would have thought
not
you would have been
this
better, because it's
Yeah.
drunk. Like, it's
Yeah,
like,
correct.
I can't stand it.
That's based on DOH's to Montgomery County Health Department and Chester County. Same format, same box the IUs use and we, as superintendents, we did not sit around and design this. This was sent to us.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
I do.
What about Berks County?
Berks County doesn't have a health department. We follow Montgomery County and just.
Just, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but like, when kids are like quarantined with their contact tracing, an actual like record of kids that also stayed home besides that the ones that were pulled out. Like, my daughter was contact traced 3 times last year. She never got sick. She just was contact traced last week, never got sick as well. You guys keep a record of like who was actually contact traced and then they actually got sick?
Yeah.
What would you say, just, you know, as a number off the top of your head, as far as like a percentage of actually it got that were affected? Just I'm curious.
Month of December, probably 25%. It was actually less last year than it is this year.
Less last year than what it is this year.
Yeah. We
Now,
have
what does
more,
that tell you?
we have more transmission. I'm just being honest.
No, but I'm
we see
saying-
more transmission
No, I
right
know.
now. One second grade student got sick. The 5 little people around him all got contact traced, and over Christmas, they all came up out.
So differentiate, not necessarily are they sick, but did they test positive?
It's just positive, yes. The degree of sickness is, I've seen everything from people totally down and out or hospitalized to people who are positive on reason. That's just how your body responds is totally different. But to us, it's, you know, they're positive. If they were in that room, they had no other exposure.
And if they didn't get tested, you would have never known that they actually contracted that because they were totally asymptomatic, am I right?
The parents tested them for some reason. Why?
Oh, there are more tests available now over the counter than there were last year.
Yeah,
I
I think
guess my question to the board is, do you want to continue to contact trace and not wear a mask in basic through 10? Or not? That's your
Well-
decision. You'll have to approve it on Wednesday because I gotta get this submitted.
The problem, what I have, and I hear from the parents, that kids are falling behind. We're trying to get them a better education. We're trying to fight for them so they would have actually more educational opportunities. And then now 75%, they don't get sick. All they do is stay home and actually fall behind because we don't provide them Zoom into the classroom, right? Or, oh,
COVID, yeah.
well,
If you're contact traced or you test positive,
Yeah, you can do
Or someone in your household. Have like a new
Right.
person whose parent is positive, they are not, but they're less than.
but they are missing in-person instructions, even though they're not, probably may not ever get sick.
But they're not. Don't know. I
But
just need- I
we're
just need
like
direction from
75, yeah, we're having 75% of kids missing in-person instructions. According to the
I'm
statistics, right?
comfortable with it, so I'll put it with it. taking a straw vote tonight.
You know whether I need to change it, what you want to change to, because you need to. include it in-
And what you're gonna change it to is what? Just basically 10 days.
That's what I
That's
have,
what you have.
yeah.
Right, right. In other words,
Right,
that's
yeah.
all you were gonna change.
That's all I was gonna change. If you want more something else. I
Except the
need to-
5-day masking after coming back to school.
I think that's overkill, is 6 to 10 days with a man.
Yes, I agree with that too.
I'm afraid to say what I say. It's not very well. enforced. I don't wanna think enforcement into it.
Hardly.
It's pathetic. But the way I've heard it's been.
Well, then
After they,
if it's not gonna be enforced, then you shouldn't have it.
that's my opinion.
That's my opinion, and that's what I've said this before, if you're gonna have those rules, then that's the rules you go by. If you're not gonna enforce the rules, then change it. You're gonna just wishy-washy, and it's okay one day, and it's not okay the next day, then change it. Because if you're gonna do rules, the rules stand. Not gonna do rules, and I know it's tough, but we gotta send a message either way, then we change it and we do what we're gonna support as rules, and that's what the administration and teachers do. Or we don't do it. But you can't send a mixed message. Either the rules stand or they don't. That's just an old principle talking. It's either
No,
yes or
I'm with
no.
It's difficult to enforce because of the fact that you could be few kids in the class, they are indicated on the sheets, who is to be masked and who is not. But if somebody comes in and has to wear a mask and they have it off and you're in the middle of class, you don't go back to the line to redo it, and then, some of our teachers are teaching 200 kids a day. It's a secondary.
Sorry, I don't go with it. I was teaching a lot of kids too. I was told what to do. I did it. I was for the safety of our children. So I would vote for either way that's going to be enforced. Whatever you want to do Wednesday night for the benefit of our students. I want to keep them in school. I do not want to go back to virtual. I want to keep our kids in school. So whatever I have to do that and support the rules and be consistent and safe, I'm for it. But I do not want to have what all these schools are pushing right now. It's going virtual. You can feel it, you can read it, it's coming. And the push is out there. And I want to keep our kids in school. That's me talk. I want to keep them in school. So please, whatever you bring to us Wednesday, make sure it's enforceable and right, and I'll support it.
We need to discuss it tonight, because it seems like we're making any changes. Let's go with it.
Right, well, you're getting this, and also principals will let the teachers know they gotta do a better job enforcing.
But I don't want the teachers then in a situation where we go all along and all of a sudden we're getting memos fired out. Well, you didn't do your job. That's not the way it happens.
Just a reminder.
I don't think we need to, you don't need to know.
I don't want the nonsense either. I
It's
just want.
honestly, what you're saying is absolutely right. You can't enforce it by having.
Okay. I agree.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, the whole mask thing, is completely throws everything off. Because nobody's walking around with like an N95 or whatever, that's forfeit.
Well, if you're gonna do it right,
You
then
can
you
walk
walk right.
around here
You're
and.
not gonna do it right.
Inside, they're
That's
coming
right.
outside.
Or it's down over the nose or it's
Or
over
you're
here.
wearing
I know.
a face shield, it's like,
What you doing? Tell me what you want.
Ask the voluntary right now, right?
Yeah, and just when you come back, just keep them voluntary.
We can send it that, yeah.
Probably some of it.
So why do we just do it every household?
Temperature is not a good indicator of COVID.
So they've been doing it.
They've been doing it, but it really doesn't, you can be asymptomatic. and be
I
here.
tried that months ago. I tried bringing that up months ago and honestly, I would have purchased the thermometers and everything. And it was not,
Do it for $10 at Home Depot.
it went down the drain.
Nick.
I tried
I
that.
had COVID, I didn't have a fever.
Yeah, my whole
But it's
family has
symptomatic
had,
people do not need one. There's the other thing.
That's all.
I'm gonna have my child with a thermometer to their head every day. That like screws up your pineal every single day. Influenza, like, that is not.
Just do one mask and go.
Nancy, you have a comment? Nancy?
no, yeah, the temperature is not a good indicator. My family had COVID twice and never had a temperature. I think it's just futile to try to do it by temperature. And I would support the health and safety plan as it is. I wouldn't want to change it.
Thanks, Nancy.
Very good. That's all your-
So it shouldn't be a thing. None of this should be. I don't know why it's going on this long. It shouldn't. Suggestion, propose.
Thanks for getting it.
I see what I get her
Here's masks are optional when they come back. Once you come back after 5 days, quarantine, whatever is optional. Any other suggestions?
I wanted to say something too. I think we have to realize that we have people who feel very strongly about this on both sides. And rather than have to determine which side we're going to be on, we have to negotiate what is going to be the best for both parties. And some of us are going to have to give up some things, and some of us are going to have to allow for some, and we have to negotiate. It's not a one side or the other. We have to meet in the middle somewhere. And I think our health and safety plan as it is doing that. It's meeting in the middle. Because I've read every one of the emails that have come through with parents, as the rest of the board has. And, it's not heavily on one side. There's not a lot of people on either side. Both sides feel very strongly about it, and it's pretty split. And so I don't think we need to try to go one way or the other. We need to meet in the middle and negotiate.
That's what optional means. Be able to decide for yourself. Do you know what I mean?
That's what option.
Because if we're in the ocean and you have one because you can't swim, a life jacket. I don't need one on for yours to work, right? We were told all the time that I'm wearing a mask to protect you. You're wearing a mask to protect yourself. You know what I'm saying?
If they work and you're wearing one, you're covered. So if you feel strongly about sending your kid to school with a mask and your kids won't wear it, if they work, you're covered. That's the way I feel about
And then the other problem I have,
it. The parents are making the choice for their children.
yes. And the other thing with the vaccination, it's discrimination between people who are vaccinated and people who are not vaccinated, because you have different rules applied. And it's already shown that transmission occurs in either, and either person still can get sick.
And infection.
So it's really kind of, I don't want to be discriminatory towards one versus the other, and masks are optional. That's where I stand.
Any suggestion? You said the suggestion you're making is they quarantine for 5 days if they're contact traced, then they come back mask option.
The same rules for vaccinated or unvaccinated, whatever they are.
Language should be.
It shouldn't be just,
Well, I don't think we have a discriminatory thing, Dr. Shank, do we, about vaccination? We don't know who's vaccinated and who's not vaccinated.
apparently in the food services you do.
Pardon?
Wasn't it like,
If you're close contact and you're vaccinated, then you only have to wear a form-fitting mask for the 10 days.
Which then you would have to show somebody that you're vaccinated
Right, and it's your
Exactly. So
choice.
there's
to not go home.
Right, and it's your choice to provide
I
that, or
understand.
you go home. So you have a choice to do it or not do it.
But in both cases, you're wearing a mask.
Correct. That's all DOH. Their little flu shots.
I mean, there was a timing issue too. I mean, like,
Just sometimes like last night, we found out an elementary case at 9 o'clock last
no,
night.
I just,
I mean, and when we could tell people.
I was elbows deep in, I don't want to be like I'm complaining, but I was elbows deep in something and had to pick the kid up at 2 o'clock. Are you kidding? perfectly healthy kid,
Yep,
asymptomatic, and they have to wear a mask on the bus.
yep, that's federal.
So if masks work, what's the problem? He can't go home on the bus? I thought masks work. That was what my issue was. It was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yep, but the drivers won't drive. If they know that a kid was close contact, they send them home on a bus and the driver won't drive and then we don't get them home.
So what you, I mean, let's just, the whole thing is fuel. I don't have a problem meeting halfway and still contact tracing and saying, okay, fine. If we're not gonna enforce when they come back properly,
This
that's
man,
all.
We take them home. Who does? Depends on the age of the kid. We call the parent. Now, if it's an 8-year-old kid, no, we would not take them home. We isolate them by themselves and we would hold them until the parents can come get them. If it's a high school student and they can be home alone and the parent says it's okay to take Johnny home, then we would take him home. Usually they're isolated in, depending on the building, in a conference room. The library here is cleaned out. Depends on how many and what age group we're talking about. They're isolated, all the contact traces are isolated together, but we don't have a lot of space to put them in.
It doesn't make any sense to take a perfectly healthy kid out of school.
All the age.
But again,
That's. Coders.
well, you can, and to your earlier spoken by Easter.
Yep.
Just in time for the election.
There'll be 3 more
Shenanigans.
variants until then.
There'll be 3 more. Yep. There'll be more variants.
I'm,
It's never gonna end.
It's not gonna-
An epidemic,
And,
yeah.
and
We gotta learn to live with
until
it.
we make it end. Point. We have to make it end.
Endemic.
And I don't mean just the poor, I thought this country, people need to make it end.
Wait, that's the way.
yes.
So we're going 10 to 5. That's already in there.
the only issue really seems to be right now is with that dimension. Contact trace for 5 days, the dimension.
And Department of Health says that they're supposed to be masked when they come back.
Day 6 through 10, that was very clear in the
They say
regs.
it must on there.
Says they must, but they must.
Uh,
That's what I was trying to find, but I can't find them.
It's a recommendation, right?
that would be good.
It says may and must in the same document.
So it's wishy-washy.
What happened?
So we're covered.
So that's what's gonna be a promotion as it sits right now, so.
Yep.
Does anybody want to discuss a change to it tonight, and walk through that, that's what we're gonna be talking about.
Just
Once
the
they come
10
back,
10 to
that's
5 and then
optional.
mask up.
Yep.
That's for 5 days when you come back.
That's fine.
That's what it says right now.
You don't understand.
I'm sorry?
How do nurses get it? Is that what you said?
Professional.
I'm not a medical,
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's,
I'm not a medical professional. I just follow what DOA says we have to do.
and not wear a mask.
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm just having a hard time hearing you. So you're saying in the healthcare facility, in healthcare, if you've been contact traced, you have to quarantine for 5 days. I'm sorry, with the air conditioner, I just can't hear you. Okay. Right. But you've been vaccinated, and in the healthcare industry, that's acceptable, I guess, right? No? I don't want to tell you. every industry, it changes from place to place, building to building, industry to industry, depending, exactly what you're saying. If they're short staffed, they've got to do something, right? It's all the same
The
rules.
same rules.
Right.
They use their sick days.
We're supposed to have plenty. I would argue.
We want to leave it the way it is, folks? Just decide Wednesday? Good. Talk about it. We'll decide Wednesday.
So just bring it.
Great.
Got it.
Yeah, you're changing it from 10 to 5 and you're.
Right, which she's already made, but.
Yeah, and mask optional when we come back.
No, that's not what it said. It said you come back for 5 days wearing a mask.
No, but this is what we are proposing.
Right, which we'll
Right.
talk about before you vote on it on Wednesday. And if, that way, Mr. Heckman's here. Mrs. Jackson, are you out Wednesday too, or are you gonna be here?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
Actually, who's out, you're out Wednesday? Dawn?
what's your vote tonight? Do you know it before Wednesday? The way it is?
You're out Wednesday too? Yeah.
No, I'll be here.
Oh, you won't be here?
Yeah, I'm doing online.
Okay. Anybody else missing Wednesday? I wasn't sure with the classes and stuff, so.
That's all we're missing, right?
We're just gonna be missing one.
All right,
No, we're doing our.
That's it?
are you voting online?
Yeah, no.
Do you want me to write a policy for you for that?
Oh.
Oh.
Yes, yeah.
Is that the same day?
Classes start.
Yeah, they had it
Oh,
on
nice.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
At the IU.
Oh, enjoy that.
Right, Burke.
I'll be here.
Okay. Anything else for take your word tonight? His name?
Could we look at doing something for Alicia Aldrich? I know we were going to present her with something.
Yeah, I know, we were
And
going,
then COVID hit.
yeah.
And then
Yeah, I thought you were in charge of that.
me?
Yeah. That's a communications committee thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
If you want a plaque made, Deb Bernicker will take care of getting it made for you. If
Okay.
you want something installed down there, we can get the plaque and have it installed. You guys design it. Yeah, I think it was Mr. Heckman said that you guys were taking care of it and all I was doing was paying the bills, so. We do need to
Talk
do
about it.
something, like, you know, that she did it, or you want to give something for, oh, put
Well, I
something down
thought we were
there.
gonna have, I mean, before COVID hit, we were gonna do
Do
like
something
something
there.
there
Yeah,
Yeah, we're talking about, I guess, putting a plaque on the bench.
on the bench or by the bench.
yeah, we can get the plaque, we can have that made for you, just, Deb will need to know what it is that you want. She takes care of all the awards for the alumni association, for the foundation, so she can do. Just decide what you want and what
I
you want.
didn't know I was in charge.
Yeah, I was told you were,
That's good to me.
so you and Mrs. Perry can take care of that.
Okay.
And so you know, we cannot find, a pest control company that will take the liability of spraying that fragweed. Nobody will touch it because of the animals, even the organic ones, because of the water table and the closeness of the 55 and over and the animals that live there, nobody will spray. Even organic, they will not spray. Tried every vendor we can do.
Well, she did it first. Some of the stuff, after we cut it all down, some of the stuff she sprayed
Something.
with a bio.
We can't find anybody that meets the requirements we have to follow, that is organic, that will take the liability of the water.
Do we need it? Does it need that though? Is that part of the plan?
Part of her plan was that we were to treat it
Just every year?
every like 6 months,
So
What are you talking about?
the retention pond at the middle school.
Okay, it's not a middle school. We just go.
I know she's upset that it's overgrown, but we can't spray it. We have to go in and weed whack the whole
We're
thing.
basically refurbishing that and putting in
Benches and.
benches and bird nests. It's a really nice job. But there's a
Fragments.
Phragmitis, which is a invasive plant that was hard to cut down. We cut it all down and years later it's all back.
You can't spray it.
That's
It's
a
a water
super
table.
weed.
Is that why they were here?
Yes, yeah, they were going, she would ask why we were doing anything about it.
Did not know that.
Yeah, and we can't, we can't find anybody, even the organic pest control people. They will not spray it because of the water table and the animals, no matter what they spray, they're afraid it'll harm. No,
Why
take
can't
the
they use
liability.
just something more natural, like vinegar and salt?
They won't use that either.
Really?
Yep, because it could get into the water table that feeds because of the underground streams down there that feed all of that. They will not treat anything. I didn't know if you talked to Norm, but
What about overseeding and fertilizing?
use anything.
No, I'm talking about just, you can't use the fertilizer either, right?
Nope.
Yeah. Thanks, folks.
You don't want your audit books, we'll take them back. Do you know what that burns?
What's that?
I tried to do the same thing he did. Tried to do what Ralph always did. I really tried.
What do you do?
Well, you know how he used to, I mean, I have my book from last year, and I tried to.
Yeah, I'm trying to do this work. I might as well look into it with this one. I guess I'll-
Revenue.
Oh, Ralph.
I mean, I saw two things. I saw two things that maybe, but I have to ask him.
She did a great job explaining what she could, but you know. We overspent the budget, but it's all.
Mary Lou loves it.
You were doing, but also.
The budget.
Good idea.
Mary Lou loves it. Mary Lou.
Loves the budget?
She loves
Just
it.
read it, fall asleep tonight. Like reading policy.
She's turning out. You can have it back.
If you don't want them, we'll take them.
No, I'm taking it because there's two things I don't understand, and I'm gonna have to ask Rob. Oh, here's one.
Seriously. That was a big budget, they'll use fund balance. Okay. Everyone have my email, Champ?
I will call